longest single road trip I did on this motorcycle right here was 88,000 miles in one trip. Yes, I said that correctly, 88,000 miles, one trip. It took me like 20 months riding nearly every day, never going home, right? But about 20,000 miles into that single road trip, I knew I had a big problem. Okay, y'all, it is a rainy day out, and today is a perfect day to talk about my Harley Davidsons, plural, and the different years and what has been consistently the Achilles tendon of this motorcycle, or its weakest point. Now, there are many wonderful things about the Harley Davidson. It is a motorcycle I truly do love riding. I'll always be a Harley guy, am a Harley guy. I have done a lot on the Harley Davidson motorcycles. One of the things I love is this new Milwaukee 8 engine. I think they did a great job on this engine. It's smooth, it's powerful, it's torquey. It's a great engine. There's a lot of other wonderful things about Harley Davidson, including just the brand. The name itself is iconic and will forever hold a spot in my heart. This in particular motorcycle is my 2017 Road Glide Ultra, and I've done a lot of modifications to it to try to make it, well, just the best it can be. Things like these handlebars, improved rear lighting. All this stuff you see here comes from Zero 3D. I've upgraded the seat, the front lighting. All this said, customizing and making these motorcycles ours is really what it's all about, isn't it? We like to show off our personality and our personal style, and some of us like to rip corners better, and other of us like to cruise long distances with lots of gear. Each of us has our own unique thing we expect out of this motorcycle. And while so much of it is absolutely so beautiful, there are a couple Achilles tendons that have been consistent on every Harley I've owned. So while I could go on and on about all the positive things like the infotainment system and all the new technology that's gone into these things like linked brakes and the list goes on, today we're going to talk about the things that I think are the most important to upgrade or the biggest need for improvement. The real two things that I can say that really need upgrading and need help on these things are, one, the frame. It's still running a steel framed and in many cases a rubber mounted engine, and that creates flex. And when you're trying to do performance cornering or you're trying to ride hard, that flex is not good. Some of the other models out there run like forged aluminum frames and things like this. That eliminates that flex, which gives you the best performance when you're laying down that rubber or carving up some mountains. Now, you can buy different stabilizers and things to help stiffen up that frame and make it perform a little bit better. But the other thing, the main thing, what we're going to talk about today for me is suspension. The suspension on my Harley Davidsons has been one of the #1 things I've paid attention to and tried to upgrade and tried to get right from day one. The design just doesn't leave a long travel or a lot of wheel travel on these motorcycles, and the less travel you have, the less suspension you have. The less suspension you have, the harder the ride is, and when you're banging down thousands of miles, those hard rides start to take a toll on your body. I may be 41, and to some of you that may be old, and to others, I may still be a pup. But I can tell you one thing, at 41 years old, I can tell a big difference at the end of a road trip based on the suspension I'm running on my motorcycle. Now, this has been a big deal from my very first Harley, which was a early 90s, I can't remember the exact year, but a lowrider. And even more so on my old Warhorse. It's a 1996 Electric Glide Standard. And it was the first motorcycle to ride to every Harley Davidson dealership in the country. I literally rode this bike coast to coast like 16 times, north to south 9, over the course of my riding career with it. So why don't I pull it out and show you something. The longest single road trip I did on this motorcycle right here was 88,000 miles in one trip. Yes, I said that correctly, 88,000 miles, one trip. It took me like 20 months riding nearly every day, never going home, right? But about 20,000 miles into that single road trip, I knew I had a big problem and that was my suspension. It wasn't holding up to the weight. It wasn't performing the way I wanted it to. It was bagging out on me. Bagging out, for those of you that don't know, is just failing, if you will. There's probably more technical definition. You can Google it and find it if you want. So I made a decision. It was time to upgrade my suspension. Now, for you to see the suspension, I'm gonna have to remove these saddlebags. It's much easier with the newer models. Another positive thing. Now when I take that off, you can see there's some pretty extreme things going on here. I mean, I had some serious weight and I had to control it and button it down using many different ways. I think if you look, there's even, well, you can't really see it, but there's been a lot of welding and a lot of fixing. Because of the amount of gear I had to carry on this motorcycle, things were constantly failing. I was way over the recommended weight limits of this structure, right? But along with too much stress and all of this, I really had way too much going on for my suspension. So I upgraded to this company called Legend Suspension. Now this is not the first aftermarket suspension. I did have another system on here prior to this that was also failing. But when I went to the Legend, I had no more issues. This specific shock that I put on here is called the Revo A. And it allows me to adjust the shock right down here with a simple click of a dial, so that it can perform the way that I need it to depending on the load I have on the motorcycle. If I was running no load, I could adjust it out. And if I was running too much load, really more load than a motorcycle should have on it, to be honest, then I could adjust it all the way the opposite direction and make it stiffer and perform better for me, and I'm not bottoming out. Now, while this Revo A did a fine job and really brought this motorcycle home to the finish line in being the first motorcycle to ride to every Harley Davidson dealership, and genuinely made a huge difference on my riding and handling, I think it's important to share that with you all because a lot of you out there are struggling with this. And after riding more motorcycles since then, I even more saw the difference suspension can make. Having the correct suspension on your motorcycle and having the correct setup can make all the difference in the world if you like to really enjoy those long miles and still like to rip once in a while. There's kind of that happy medium, right? You don't want it too stiff where it's hard, but you want it stiff enough that you can still dig in and carve into a nice mountainside. So when I upgraded from this 1996 Electric Glide Standard to a 2017 Road Glide Ultra with clearly twice the horsepower, a lot more technology, really just an all-around better touring machine, I noticed one thing was still found lacking, and that was the suspension. So immediately I went out and got myself a set of Legend Revo A's and got them set up on my Road Glide. And they did really good. They were a great suspension. They definitely improved my handling and performance quite a bit. But then this new technology started becoming a big thing. I've seen it in the truck world and in the car world and in the off-road world, and it started to become big in the motorcycle world, at least for performance style baggers and touring bikes. It was fairly new. And that was the remote reservoir. So for my Road Glide, it looks like this. This is the remote reservoir. No longer do I have to take off my bag for some of the adjustments. I can adjust them right here. Let me take the saddlebag off and show you what the whole setup looks like. So the difference is this hose and this remote reservoir. This allows you to adjust the compression up and down while you still have your adjustment down here for the rebound. So what exactly does that mean? Well, on the Revo A's, you can adjust the rebound. That's how fast it comes back. So it's not throwing you and bucking you when you get into these corners. You ever start to feel that wobble that happens? Sometimes you get into a corner and your bike starts doing this. Two things are typically causing that. One, your frame flex. Two, your suspension. It's the amount of rebound, the amount of bouncing back at you that it's doing as it's compressing into that corner and hitting bumps and impurities. It's throwing you back. Adjusting that rebound to your ride weight makes a big difference in that handling. But then another thing is the compression, and now we have the ability to do that. So compression is how fast that cylinder collapses. Let me explain it to you a little bit easier. Head over to my desk. So my desk is really just my workbench. Don't ask me what's in there. I'm not telling you. Okay. So this is basically the brochure that they put out with it that you can find online, the same information, the Revo Arc. And it's called the Arc because it is the remote reservoir. You can also get it on a piggyback. You just don't have the hose. The reservoir is actually attached to the shock. It works good with your Dynas and those other type of models. And of course you can find everything you need here for your spring rates, your sizes. But what we're talking about is compression and rebound. So as this shock goes through that cylinder, it's pushing fluid through this cylinder. And there's little holes in here that allow the fluid to go through faster or slower. By having a remote reservoir, it just gives you some space, because as you can imagine, once this piston is all the way compressed, now you've got your fluid locked in there. By having a remote reservoir, it allows somewhere for that fluid to go, which gives you just a little bit more stroke in that shock. And when the stroke isn't long enough right from the manufacturer on that rear suspension, your travel's only so much. Gaining every little bit of stroke in that rear piston is going to be really important for you. Now, as you saw on both of my shocks, there's adjustability on these threads. So you can adjust your compression, your sag, if you will, right off the gates. And that's going to be really important depending on your weight and what kind of luggage you're normally carrying on that motorcycle. But at the end of the day, you can go online with them, and when you get it, they'll help you set up what you need to do for what they call the preload, how far you're screwing that shock in. But I just wanted to tell you, from my very first touring motorcycle that I broke multiple records on, to the newest Road Glide I've got right now, set up for performance, I have chosen to upgrade the suspension as one of my biggest things. No, probably the biggest thing you can do to improve your ride is upgrading that suspension. And of course, I'm not gonna lie to you, it's not an inexpensive upgrade. Your Revo A's are starting at around $925. Your Revo Arcs about $1295. So it is not an inexpensive upgrade, although I will say probably one of the most important upgrades you can do to your motorcycle. Suspension, brakes, tires, these are not things you want to cheap out on. These are things that definitely affect the comfort of your ride and the safety of your ride. So I want to tell you a little bit about what I found to be probably, I'm gonna venture to say, if not my number one of my top 2 or 3 upgrades you could possibly do to your motorcycle, to your Harley Davidson, specifically, whether you're riding a 1996 with an Evolution motor or their latest technology and their top of the line touring bikes. That suspension is the real deal, and it will make a big difference for you. So I thought, you know what? Now is a good time, little rainy day, to talk a little bit about parts and what I find important for me when I'm out there on the road. Hey, if y'all have not yet, please click that subscribe button. If you like anything to do with motorcycles, side-by-sides, really any type of machinery, you like finding cool roads to ride and restaurants and bars to visit, towns, and anything to do with traveling around America, having fun on power sports. My name's Adam Sandoval. Thank you all for tuning in, and let me know in the comments below. Do you agree? Have you experienced any wobble? Have you upgraded your suspension and seen a difference? Let everybody know down in the comments. This is not anything new, but maybe for some new riders, it just might make the ride a little bit more enjoyable for them in the future. Anything is possible. Even an upgraded suspension may seem out of your reach, but if it's important to you, you will find a way. You will work for it day and day. You will not quit. You will be on a mission to accomplish a goal. For me, I have had struggles accomplishing a few goals over the years, but I don't quit because I'm no quitter. I am one of the Americans. Oh, and if you're not watching this on YouTube, y'all, please, do me a favor, go find Adam Sandoval on YouTube, click that subscribe button. It's 100% free, and it makes it so much easier for me to continue doing videos and showing y'all this great country and these beautiful power sports we all love so much.